There comes a night in every man's life when something breaks. Not his heart, but the illusion that he needs to be chosen. The noise fades. The texts stop. The world goes quiet. And in that silence, a man faces the truth he spent years running from. Peace was never out there. It was always in him. He sits alone, maybe in a small apartment, maybe under the dull hum of a single lamp, realizing something that feels almost dangerous in today's world. He's okay. Not ecstatic, not chasing, not performing. Just okay. And that small, calm feeling? It's freedom disguised as stillness. They told him solitude was punishment. That being alone meant being unfinished. That if no one wanted him, something was wrong with him. But what if the opposite is true? What if solitude isn't the absence of love, but the presence of self? This is where men are awakening. Not in noise, not in chaos, but in quiet realization. The modern man isn't running from love. He's running toward peace. He's done apologizing for wanting calm over conflict, logic over manipulation, truth over illusion. For decades, society mocked the man who lived alone, called him cold, selfish, lost. But step inside his world today, and you'll see something else. No clutter, no drama, no pretending. The quiet hum of music, the smell of fresh coffee, a space built with intention. His apartment isn't a retreat from life. It's a declaration of independence. Because this man isn't lonely. He's finally at peace. He's not isolated. He's rebuilding. He's not afraid of commitment. He's committed to himself first. This is not the lonely bachelor of the past. This is the awakened man. Calm, self-controlled, untouchable. He no longer seeks validation because he's found something stronger, inner stability. And that scares people. Because you can't control a man who's made peace with his own company. The world used to say a man without a partner was incomplete. But the truth is far more dangerous. He was whole all along. This is the rise of the solo man. Not broken, not bitter, reborn in silence and stronger because of it. They called it loneliness. But what if it was liberation? Every revolution starts quietly. And this one began the moment men stopped begging to be understood. That single decision, that silent retreat from chaos, has become something unstoppable. Because men are realizing solitude isn't punishment, it's power. Cooking alone isn't sadness. It's self-mastery. An empty bed isn't failure. It's freedom. Silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. When a man creates a home for himself, not a showroom for validation, but a real sanctuary, something inside him shifts. He starts to stand taller, breathe slower, move with purpose. He makes his bed not for applause, but because it grounds him. He cooks not to impress, but to honor himself. He trains not to chase, but to become. That's the quiet evolution of the modern bachelor pad. Not a symbol of immaturity, but of clarity. Because this new generation of men isn't chasing escape. They're chasing alignment. They've discovered that solitude isn't absence. It's focus. That time alone isn't wasted. It's refined. That independence isn't detachment. It's direction. And when that realization sinks in, you can see it in their faces. The tension fades, the eyes sharpen, the mind calms. For the first time in a long time, they look content. Because when a man learns to stand alone, he's no longer standing against anyone. He's standing for himself. Society never understood that. It told men solitude meant weakness. But now, they're learning the truth. When chosen, solitude isn't loneliness, it's clarity. Men around the world are rediscovering themselves, not as missing pieces, but as complete beings. So the next time you see a man in a quiet apartment, don't assume no one wants him. Understand that he finally wants himself. This isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of peace, the kind that comes when a man knows he can stand alone and never fall. Section 3. Redefining fulfillment. The inner landscape. At first, the silence feels heavy. It echoes with ghosts, laughter, arguments, memories. Life used to be loud, full of distraction. Now it's still. And in that stillness, he begins to face something far more difficult than loneliness, himself. That's where the transformation begins. Not in the gym, not in the bank account, in the mind, in the mirror, in the moments no one sees. When a man learns to be alone, he finally meets himself again, the unfiltered version, the one buried under years of expectation and noise. He rediscovers his rhythm, how he likes his mornings, how he drinks his coffee, what peace actually feels like. And in that rediscovery, something miraculous happens: contentment. A word men were never taught to understand. He was raised to chase, to conquer, to win, but never to be. Solitude becomes his teacher. It slows him down. It forces reflection. It gives him space to stop fighting himself. And through that stillness, he finds control. Not control over others, but over his own mind. He begins to build rituals: reading, training, journaling, meditation, not for show, but for stability. He sets small goals, not to impress, but to sharpen. Because self-respect isn't built on attention. It's built on discipline. And happiness isn't built on validation. It's built on direction. This is the unseen journey, the quiet rebuild that no one applauds. The late nights, the slow progress, the invisible victories. Fulfillment doesn't shout. It hums. It lives in the background of a man who finally understands his own worth. Eventually, every man discovers this truth. You can't know peace until you face yourself completely, until you've forgiven your past, owned your mistakes, and said, "That was me once, but it's not me anymore." Solo living gives him that space, not to isolate, but to integrate, to become whole again after years of fragmentation. He fills his time with purpose, books that teach, music that stirs, walks that reconnect. He rebuilds himself piece by piece with hobbies, reflection, and meaning. And slowly, fulfillment returns. Not the loud, flashy kind, but the calm, grounded, unshakable kind. The kind that can only be born in silence. There's a moment every man reaches, the kind that can't be faked or forced, when he catches himself smiling for no reason at all. No one texted, no one called, nothing happened, and yet he feels whole. That smile isn't weakness. It's the quiet signature of a man who finally stopped chasing completion in others. It's the calm power that comes from knowing he can be alone and still feel enough. This isn't about rejecting connection. It's about redefining it. Because relationships built on emptiness will always collapse, but those built on wholeness, on two complete people, can last. That's the paradox. Once a man learns to live peacefully alone, he stops chasing love out of need and starts attracting it out of peace. Fulfillment doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being lovable, from becoming the kind of man whose energy radiates calm, stability, and truth. And that energy doesn't come from romance. It comes from solitude, from the quiet moments when he exhales, looks around, and realizes he finally likes the person sitting there. Maybe that's the real definition of fulfillment. Not having everything, but needing less. Not chasing noise, but being comfortable in silence. The solo man isn't hiding from the world. He's healing from it. And through that healing, he's discovering a kind of happiness no one can take away. Section 4. Crafting the Ideal Life. Autonomy in Action. When a man finds peace in solitude, something remarkable happens. His vision sharpens. His world becomes smaller, but infinitely clearer. And for the first time in years, he asks the question most men spend a lifetime avoiding. What kind of life do I actually want? Not the life he was told to live. Not the one that photographs well. But the life that feels right when the lights go out and it's just him, his breath, and his thoughts. Solo living gives him something priceless: control. Not control over others, but over himself, his time, his habits, his focus, his energy. He no longer sacrifices his peace just to keep someone else comfortable. He doesn't shrink himself to avoid conflict. He doesn't explain his every choice to be understood. For the first time, life becomes a blank canvas again, and the brush is finally in his hands. His mornings aren't chaos, they're rhythm. He wakes early because he wants to, not because he has to. He brews his coffee, opens the window, and breathes. That small moment, unremarkable to the world, becomes sacred. Because it's his. He structures his day with precision. He works not to survive, but to grow. He trains not for validation, but for strength. He invests not for luxury, but for freedom. His time becomes currency, and he spends it wisely. Freedom, he realizes, isn't doing whatever you want. It's doing what aligns with who you truly are. In solitude, he discovers the beauty of order. Peace isn't found in bigger spaces. It's found in simpler ones. His environment becomes a mirror of his mind, clean, balanced, functional. Every object has a purpose. Every sound, intention. Every day, meaning. He no longer fights his schedule. He flows with it. He eats better, sleeps deeper, plans longer, feels lighter. There's a quiet pride that grows from building a life piece by piece and knowing it's yours. Financially, he evolves too. Money stops being a way to impress and becomes a tool for autonomy. No arguments about spending. No guilt about priorities. No explaining ambition to someone who doesn't share it. Every dollar becomes a brick in the foundation of peace. He spends with purpose, saves with foresight, invests with clarity, because his future finally belongs to him. But solitude doesn't make him selfish. It makes him selective. He values quality over quantity. In people, in time, in experience. He doesn't crave a crowd. He seeks connection. He surrounds himself with people who bring calm instead of chaos, truth instead of tension, growth instead of gossip. His circle shrinks, but his conversations deepen. He stops chasing approval and starts pursuing alignment. He stops waiting for weekends to feel alive and begins crafting peace in his everyday rhythm. He becomes what few men ever become, the architect of his own existence. Because real autonomy isn't rebellion. It's ownership. Ownership of your time, your choices, your emotions, your path. And there's an unshakable power in knowing your happiness doesn't need permission. Not from society, not for validation, not from anyone. That's the quiet revolution of the awakened man. Freedom is no longer his escape. It's his expression. It's waking up, breathing deep, and realizing he's finally home within himself. Becoming a man you actually respect isn't about a highlight reel. It's about how you feel when the lights go off. It's drifting to sleep with your conscience clear, knowing your hours were spent with intention. It's moving through the world with a quiet steadiness, proud of the life you've forged. No boasting, no preaching, no performance, just living. In a culture hooked on noise and validation, that kind of calm is a small revolution. Many of us were raised to mistake chaos for meaning, as if struggle were proof of purpose. But a simpler, sturdier truth is taking root. Peace is also success. Sometimes the bravest act is building a life you're glad to be alone with. Not isolation, ownership. Not hiding, alignment. The man who learns to be at home in his own company stops bargaining with his self-respect. Debunking the myths, facts over fiction. When men choose peace, someone will always call it a problem. If he lives alone, he must be lonely. If he enjoys solitude, he must be bitter. If he focuses on himself, he must be selfish. If he walks away from drama, he must be cold. The reality? Peace looks suspicious only to people who've never felt it. For too long, men were cast in a role that no longer fits. The idea that life only counts if it includes constant noise, constant company, constant proof. Those myths are fading because more men are speaking with their choices, not their mouths. They're demonstrating that solitude can be beautiful, that happiness doesn't need an audience, that self-respect isn't arrogance, it's foundation. Consider the biggest myth, the forever alone fallacy. The solo man is often painted as incomplete, as if being on your own is evidence of failure. But look closely and you'll see something else. Men engaging differently. They build real friendships, pursue demanding passions, care for their bodies, and set more honest boundaries. They still date, still connect, still love. They've simply stopped making peace the price of admission. That's not loneliness, it's maturity. Then there's the cartoon of the messy bachelor, the unmade bed, the fridge with nothing but air, the life in disarray. Step into the home of a modern solo man, and the picture changes. Order, care, intentional simplicity. The space is tended to because the mind is. He's not curating a showroom. He's respecting himself. He understands that environment mirrors inner state, and he chooses both. Perhaps the sharpest myth is the idea that living alone means you've given up on love. No, it means you've stopped begging for it. Love is invited, not chased. Connection is mutual, not extracted. Peace with yourself is the soil in which healthy love can actually grow. Solo living doesn't kill romance. It refines it. It turns desperation into discernment, fear into steadiness, scarcity into choice. Of course, this makes some people uncomfortable. A man who no longer feeds on external approval is hard to move and even harder to manipulate. He buys less to numb himself. He gives less to people who only take. He stops auditioning for value he already has. He becomes grounded, composed, unbothered. And that calm is power, because you can't control a man who doesn't crave your applause. For the first time in generations, men are dropping the guilt that comes with choosing peace. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. Wanting quiet isn't cold. Enjoying your own company isn't toxic. These are signs of emotional maturity, self-command, not withdrawal. Strength that whispers instead of shouts. It won't silence the critics. Some will call it a phase. Some will mock what they don't understand. Let them. The man who has found peace doesn't explain his life by committee. He doesn't need permission. He doesn't need to prove he's happy. He doesn't apologize for guarding what keeps him whole. His joy doesn't require witnesses. His choices don't need a cheer squad. His silence doesn't owe anyone an interpretation. He's not rebelling. He's rebuilding. He's not cynical. He's centered. He's not lost. He finally knows where he stands. The man who chooses solitude in a loud world isn't avoiding connection. He's redefining it. He's saying, I will open my door when you arrive carrying peace too. That isn't selfish. That's sacred. Because those who've lived through noise and clawed their way to quiet know a secret the crowd often misses. There's nothing lonelier than pretending to be happy in a life that isn't yours, and nothing more complete than being alone and truly at peace. Looking ahead, the quiet independence taking shape. The future is shifting in subtle ways. You can see it in how men live now. In apartments that are clean not for show, but for sanity. In routines that trade chaos for clarity. In friendships that lift instead of drain. In work chosen for meaning, not only for status. In a calendar with white space. In a phone that stays face down. In a mind that is less of a battlefield and more of a home. This isn't a manifesto against love, marriage, or community. It's a manifesto against losing yourself inside them. It rejects the ancient bargain where a man trades his center for belonging. It says purpose is not found in the loudest room, the biggest crowd, or the constant scroll. It's built in the quiet repetition of disciplined days. Read, train, create, rest. Keep your promises. Tell the truth. Ask for nothing you're unwilling to earn. That's Stoic psychology in practice. You don't control the world, but you master your response to it. And as more men adopt that posture, relationships change too. Partners meet as equals, not saviors. Love is offered freely, not negotiated out of fear. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with hinges, able to open, able to close, anchored in self-respect. The result is not detachment, but depth. Not colder hearts, but clearer ones. The culture will keep selling louder answers. You don't need them. What you need is a life that makes sense from the inside. A life that feels quiet, earned, and yours. Become a man you like being with at breakfast and can still respect by sunset. Live so your head hits the pillow and your soul doesn't argue. Let your peace be your proof. No bragging, no preaching, no posting, just living. In a world overdosed on noise, your quiet will say everything. Desks by open windows. Small kitchens where one plate and one cup are enough. Weekends no longer crammed with noise, but held in quiet. Something real is happening beneath the headlines. Men are recognizing that the modern chase, the endless scramble for more, was never engineered for happiness. It was engineered for exhaustion. So they're stepping off the treadmill. They're not disappearing from society. They're redesigning their place within it. Choosing balance over burnout, purpose over pressure, silence over superficial noise. The questions are changing too. Not, how can I get more? But what do I actually need? Strip away the unnecessary. And what returns is what's been missing for generations. Clarity. Men are building smaller, calmer lives, lives that fit. You can see it in the growth of solo apartments in crowded cities, in minimalism, in self-education, in quiet routes to financial independence. This isn't a retreat from the world. It's a simpler, cleaner relationship with it. Because peace isn't the result of having everything. It's the result of wanting less. Solo living isn't a fad. It's an awakening. A recognition that fulfillment doesn't need an audience. That happiness doesn't require a partner to be valid. That love expands outward only after it's rooted inward. This shift isn't anti-family or anti-woman. It's pro-stability, pro-peace, pro-purpose. It's a man saying, I've carried the world long enough. Now I'll carry myself. And the culture can adjust. And it already is. Look at housing. Smaller, smarter spaces designed for one. Work, flexible, remote, asynchronous. Travel, solo by design. Brands, selling simplicity over status. Culture is changing too. Men are trading status for skill, spectacle for substance. Success isn't measured by how full the house is, but by how quiet the mind feels when walking through it. This is a new strength, undramatic, steady, not defined by dominance or control. A strength that lives in calm. The ability to walk alone and feel whole. There's a poetry to it. The same men once mocked as loners now lead a course correction, reminding the world that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. A man who enjoys his own company isn't dodging responsibility. He's mastered it. Maybe the future doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest. Maybe it belongs to those who learn to hear themselves. These men aren't anti-connection, they're anti-chaos. They're not rejecting love, they're refining it. They're not giving up, they're growing up. They've seen what happens when you build your happiness on someone else's instability, and they've chosen a sturdier foundation. The future is independent. Not because we don't need each other, but because we're finally learning to stand alone first. A society of emotionally grounded, self-sufficient men doesn't fracture, it stabilizes. Strong individuals make strong communities. That's the paradox. By learning to be alone, men may actually be saving connection. What happens next? A generation that stops apologizing for protecting its peace. That finds happiness not in escape, but in ownership. That treats solitude as something sacred. This isn't regression. It's evolution, a return to what was forgotten. Happiness was never meant to be outsourced. Soon you'll see more of them. Quiet men, focused men, content men. Not loud, not flashy, but whole. They'll move through the world lightly. Not because they have less, but because they finally understood how little they truly need. Perhaps that's the future of masculinity. Not a louder version of manhood, but a wiser one. A man who can be alone and still be complete. That's not rebellion. That's peace. Section 7. The Content Man. In the end, this isn't about being single. It isn't about rejection, rebellion, or proving anyone wrong. It's about peace, the kind that needs no explanation. The kind of happiness no one else can see, but you can feel. Happiness doesn't always look like laughter or grand romance. Sometimes it looks like silence. A clean room. A cup of coffee made exactly right. A phone that doesn't ring, and you're fine with that. That's contentment. Deeper than joy, steadier than hype. The content man doesn't chase anymore. He doesn't need to. He knows what chasing costs. Time, energy, self-respect. He's learned that peace isn't found in pursuit. It's found in presence. He isn't angry at the world, and he isn't bitter about the past. He's simply done fighting battles that don't belong to him. Here's the turn. When a man stops chasing, he starts attracting. When he stops performing, he starts becoming. And when he stops apologizing for protecting his space, he starts living from it. Chased, someone who is enough on his own. The content man has stopped measuring his life by the expectations of others. He doesn't need to prove his worth, because he's already built it. He doesn't need to validate his existence through external accomplishments or approval. His validation is in the quiet satisfaction of living truthfully. In his peace, he becomes a beacon for others who seek the same stillness. There's something revolutionary about this peace, a quiet shift that goes unnoticed by many, but its impact is profound. It isn't about rebellion. It's about reconstruction. Men who choose solitude are not running from society. They're quietly teaching it to live differently. They're showing that joy doesn't require validation. That connection doesn't require dependency. That love doesn't require self-sacrifice. The man who has found peace doesn't chase affection or affirmation. He has stopped relying on the world to fill the holes within him. Instead, he fills those spaces with understanding, self-compassion, and quiet strength. His value no longer lies in being needed, but in being complete. As he moves through the world with that calm, there's a subtle power in his presence. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's felt. This man doesn't rush because he's no longer driven by the urgency of others' expectations. He walks gently, with certainty in his steps, grounded in the peace he's cultivated within. The greatest act of strength he now embodies is not in seeking to conquer the world, but in seeking to understand himself. He's no longer in competition with anyone. The quiet revolution happening within him has transformed his view of success, not as a race to accumulate or prove worth, but as a personal evolution toward authenticity. And this is where his power lies, in his ability to stand firm, alone but not lonely, steady but not stagnant. He is enough, without the need for anyone else to define him. His revolution is in how he chooses to live each day, not for external applause, but for internal peace. This is the quiet revolution of the content man, a man who no longer needs to chase anything because he has already found everything he needs in his own heart. The world might not understand him, but that's all right. He isn't living for others' understanding. He's living for his own. And in that, he finds his greatest joy.